I walked into my bedroom and froze. My husband was tangled in sheets with my son's girlfriend. But what shattered me wasn't their betrayal. It was the way she looked at me and smiled. I didn't scream. I just turned around, shut the door. The next morning, they woke up to something neither of them saw coming. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. The key turned in the lock with a sound like breaking glass. I remember that. Not a click, not a snap. It was a sharp, shattering sound that split my life cleanly into two parts, the before and the god-awful after. I'd come home early from my sister's place. We'd had lunch, and a headache had started creeping up the back of my neck, one of those dull, persistent aches that drains all the color from the day. Richard, my husband, was supposed to be at the office until 6, and our son, Daniel, was downtown at his new job. The house should have been empty, quiet. My own quiet sanctuary for a few hours. I remember my hand on the brass doorknob. It was cold, so cold it almost burned, the kind of deep, unnatural cold that sinks into your bones. The hinges didn't creak when I pushed the door open. They whispered. It was a soft, conspiratorial sound, as if the house itself was trying to warn me. As if it was whispering, "Turn around, Brenda. Go back downstairs. Keep the life you think you have for just one more blessed, ignorant moment." But I didn't. Of course, I didn't. We never do we? We walk right toward the thing that's going to destroy us. The door swung open, and the air hit me first. It was thick, warm, and it carried the scent of his cologne, that crisp, woodsy scent I'd bought him for our anniversary, but it was mixed with something else. Something floral and young. Her perfume. Hailey's. The one I'd complimented just a few weeks ago when she'd worn it to our Sunday family dinner. What a lovely fragrance, I'd said, smiling at her across the table. My son, Daniel, was beaming beside her, so proud, so in love with this girl I had welcomed into our home, into our lives. I'd thought to myself then, watching them, how happy I was that we all got along so well. What a fool I was. Happy. The word tastes like ash in my mouth now. The afternoon light slanted through our bedroom window, golden and gentle, painting everything in honey-colored lies. Dust motes danced in the sunbeam, suspended in the air. I remember watching them float, and the most absurd thought popped into my head, isn't that beautiful? A perfect, peaceful moment, right before the world ended. Then I saw them. My husband, Richard, 48 years old, the man I'd married at 25. The man with the graying temples that I used to think made him look so distinguished. The man whose shoulders I had massaged on countless nights when the stress of his real estate business knotted his muscles into tight, painful lumps. The skin I had traced in the dark for 2 decades. His back was to me. And then there was her. Hailey. 22 years old. My son's girlfriend of nearly 2 years. The girl who'd spent Christmases at our table, who'd cried on my couch about a bad grade on a college paper while I made her tea. The girl who'd called me her second mom with a sincerity that had made my heart swell. The girl I had trusted with my son, the most precious thing in my life. They were on the bed. My bed. The bed I'd made just that morning, smoothing out the wrinkles in the Egyptian cotton sheets. The 800 thread count set I'd splurged on for our 20th anniversary. They were twisted around them, those expensive sheets, like accomplices in their crime. Time did something strange in that moment. It stretched and compressed, like a lung struggling for air. I felt like I was underwater, watching a silent movie. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even properly process what I was seeing, because my brain, my poor, loyal brain, kept trying to rewrite the scene into something acceptable. Something explainable. This is a misunderstanding. It has to be. Maybe she was sick, and he was helping her. Maybe. But there was no maybe. There was only the truth, right there in front of me. And then, she turned her head. Haley. She looked directly at me. Her eyes met mine across the room, across the wreckage of my marriage, across the gaping canyon that had just opened up in my chest. And she smiled. It wasn't a gasp. Not a flicker of shock or shame or horror. Not the frantic scramble of someone caught doing something unforgivable. It was a smile. Slow, deliberate, curling at the corners of her lips like smoke. Her blue eyes, my son's girlfriend's eyes, the eyes I had looked into with so much trust and affection, held mine with an expression that turned my blood to ice water. It was victory. That's what the smile said. That's what it meant. I won. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The sound that came out of my throat wasn't even human. It was a small, strangled noise, like something breaking deep underwater. Like drowning. I took one step back, my hand still on the doorknob. Brenda, wait. Richard was scrambling up now, his face a mess of emotions, fear, guilt, and then, worst of all, calculation. I saw it flicker in his eyes, the quick mental math of how to spin this, how to manage the fallout. His voice, saying my name in that room, in that moment, sounded like the biggest lie I'd ever heard. But I didn't wait. I turned and closed the door, just as quietly as I had opened it. I stood in the hallway, my body shaking so violently I couldn't tell where I ended and the trembling began. Behind the door, I could hear frantic movement, low voices, his panicked, hers, calm. Disturbingly calm. I walked away. I walked down the stairs, each step feeling like I was moving through concrete. I placed my hand on the banister, focusing on the smooth, cool wood beneath my palm. Something solid. Something real. I reached the front door and put my hand on it, ready to run. But then I stopped. Where would I go? This was my house. My home. For 20 years, this had been my sanctuary, the place that held my life together. And he had brought her here. Into our bed. The bed where we had made love, where we'd held each other through nightmares, where I'd nursed him through the flu. The bed where he'd held me the night my father died, letting me sob into his chest until there were no more tears left. That bed. The rage, cold and pure, began to push through the shock. I turned around, walked into the kitchen, and filled a glass with water. My hands were shaking so badly that water sloshed over the rim, puddling on the granite countertop. I tried to drink, but I couldn't swallow past the lump in my throat. I set the glass down. The kitchen looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Sunlight streamed through the window over the sink. The coffee maker I'd used just hours ago sat on the counter. The grocery list on the fridge, in my own handwriting, milk, bread, chicken breasts, laundry detergent, it all looked so criminally normal. I heard the bedroom door open upstairs. Then footsteps, coming down. I stood very still, my back to the doorway. Richard appeared. Dressed now, his hair disheveled. His face. I couldn't look at his face. I couldn't bear to see the features I'd loved for 2 decades twisted into this stranger's expression. Brenda, his voice was shaking. Please, just let me explain. Explain, the word came out flat, dead. It's not. This isn't what it looks like. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing. Now it just looked frantic. God. Brenda. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Haley came down the stairs behind him, fully dressed, perfectly composed. Her hair was a little messy, but otherwise, she looked like she'd just been over for a casual visit. Like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the center of my life. She looked at me. Brenda. I think I should go. You think? The words came out sharper than I intended, sharper than I'd ever spoken to her. You think you should go? She had the decency to drop her eyes, but only for a moment. When she looked back up, there was something else in her expression. Not shame. Something harder. More deliberate. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. This way. Not sorry for what she'd done. Sorry for the way I discovered it. As if there was a better, more polite method for finding your husband in bed with your son's 22-year-old girlfriend. As if there was a painless way to have your life torn to shreds. Leave my house, my voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. She moved toward the door, not scurrying away in shame, but walking with measured, deliberate steps. At the threshold, she paused and turned back. Daniel doesn't need to know, she said quietly. We can keep this between us. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. The manipulation, disguised as compassion. She was already trying to control the narrative, to protect herself, to make me a co-conspirator in her deception against my own son. How kind of you, I said, my voice dripping with ice, to consider my son's feelings now. She flinched. Finally, a crack in the composure. Then she was gone. Richard and I stood in the silence of the kitchen. Husband and wife. Two people who'd promised forever, who'd built a life, raised a child, weathered storms. But we weren't people anymore. We were a crime scene. How long has this been going on, Richard? I asked, my voice mechanical, like I was conducting an interview. He closed his eyes. Brenda. How long? He finally met my gaze. 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. 12 weeks of lies. 12 weeks of him kissing me goodbye in the morning and hello at night. Of us eating dinner together, watching TV, discussing Daniel's new job and the fence that needed fixing. 3 months of him touching me while he was thinking of her, of him sleeping beside me while dreaming of someone else. Someone young enough to be his daughter. Where? My voice was still flat. Besides here. Does it matter? Yes. He slumped into a kitchen chair, putting his head in his hands. Hotels. Her apartment. The office, a few times. The office. His office, where I'd brought him surprise lunches, where I'd taken Daniel to visit his father at work. She'd probably been there on one of those days. Maybe hiding in the bathroom, or maybe just sitting brazenly at a nearby desk while I played the part of the devoted wife. The thought made me sick. Did you laugh at me? I asked, the question bubbling up from a place of deep humiliation. The two of you. Did you think I was stupid? Naive? No. God, no, Brenda, I never. He stood up, moved toward me. I stepped back so fast I hit the counter. Don't touch me. He froze. I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. But what was he crying for? His mistake? His guilt? Or just for the fact that he'd finally been caught? I love you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know you don't believe me right now, but I do. I love you. This thing with Haley, it was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake. But it doesn't change how I feel about you. Mistake. That word again. 3 months wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is calling someone by the wrong name. This was a choice. 100 choices, 1,000 small decisions that all added up to this moment of absolute betrayal. Why? The word cracked in the middle. Why her? My son's girlfriend. Why, Richard? I don't know, he whispered, pressing his hands to his face. There's no good answer. There's no reason that makes it okay. She was young, and she paid attention to me, and I was flattered and stupid. All the terrible, pathetic clichés. Every single one. Did you love her? I needed to know. I needed to understand if I had lost him to something real or just to the cheap thrill of the forbidden. He met my eyes. No. I didn't love her. It was exciting. Physical. But I didn't love her. I love you, Brenda. Past tense and present tense, all tangled up together. He didn't love her. He loved me. Both statements somehow managing to be true and completely meaningless at the same time. Just leave, I said. Brenda, please. Get out of my house. My voice rose, finally, the numbness cracking to reveal the white-hot rage underneath. Get out right now, or I swear to God I will call the police and tell them you're trespassing. This is my house, too. Then I'll leave, I shot back. I'll pack a bag and I'll leave, and you can stay here in our bed, where you brought her, and you can think about what you've done. Please, let's just talk about this. Let's figure this out. There is nothing to figure out. I was yelling now. You brought my son's girlfriend into our bed. You've been lying to me, and to our son, for 3 months. You looked me in the eye every single day and you lied. What is there to figure out? Whether you can forgive me, he said, the audacity of it taking my breath away. As if forgiveness was a switch I could just flip. As if 20 years of love and trust could be balanced against 3 months of deceit. I don't know, I said, the rage suddenly draining away, leaving only a vast, empty exhaustion. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I want to forgive you. All I know right now is that I can't look at you. He nodded slowly, defeated. Where do you want me to go? I don't care. A friend's house. Your office. Sleep on the street for all I care. He went upstairs. I heard him in the bedroom, our bedroom, packing a bag. The room I knew I would never be able to enter again without seeing them. He came back down a few minutes later with a suitcase. He stood by the door, a stranger in the house we had built together. I'll call you, he said. I didn't respond. I love you, Brenda. Please believe that. Then he was gone. And the house fell silent. A heavy, devastating silence that pressed down on me until I couldn't breathe. I slid down the kitchen wall until I was sitting on the cold tile floor, simply because my legs had stopped working. I sat there, in the home I had made, and I tried to cry. But the tears wouldn't come. There was only the numbness, and the slow-motion replay of Haley's victorious smile. That smile. I closed my eyes and saw it again. The curve of her lips, the cold triumph in her eyes. She had wanted me to see. She had orchestrated it. The timing, the unlocked door, maybe even the small sounds that had drawn me upstairs. This wasn't an accident. This was a performance, and I was the intended audience. But why? What did she gain from me knowing? And then, slowly, horribly, the answer began to form in my mind. She didn't just want my husband. She wanted my life. She wanted to step into the role I'd occupied and prove she could do it better. Younger, more desirable. She wanted me to witness my own replacement. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. Hey Mom, just checking in. Is Dad home yet? Haley and I were thinking of stopping by later. My hands started shaking again. How was I going to tell him? How could I shatter his world like mine had just been shattered? I couldn't. Not yet. I typed back, my fingers clumsy. Not yet, honey. Maybe tomorrow. The lies were already starting. The performance of normalcy, all to protect him. Then another text came through. An unknown number. Brenda, it's Haley. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I am truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please don't tell Daniel. It would destroy him. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it. She was worried about him being destroyed. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack. I had spent enough time being devastated. Now, it was time to think. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I woke up on the couch, my neck stiff, my mouth tasting like copper. For 3 blissful seconds, I didn't remember. I was just a woman waking up in her living room, confused about why she wasn't in her bed. Then it all came crashing back, the bedroom door, the honey-colored light, Richard's panic, and Haley's smile. I forced myself to stand, my body aching as if I'd been in a physical fight. I walked upstairs, my feet heavy on each step. I walked right past our bedroom. I couldn't go in there. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I went into the guest bathroom and stood under a shower as hot as I could stand, trying to scald away the feeling of violation, of being made a fool in my own home. It didn't work. Dressed in fresh clothes, I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes hollow. But she was still standing. Still breathing. Fake it till you make it, I thought. Then I corrected myself. Fake it until you figure out what you're making. Daniel was coming over that afternoon. He'd called the night before, after I'd sent that vague text, his voice full of a cheerful ignorance that felt like a knife in my gut. He wanted to show me some options for a new computer he was saving for. I had 2 hours to transform myself back into a mother, to put on the mask of normalcy and hide the fact that my insides had been scooped out and replaced with broken glass. I went downstairs and made coffee. The simple, mechanical ritual was comforting. Scoop the grounds, pour the water, press the button. Simple steps. Achievable goals. My phone, which I'd retrieved from the floor, had 17 new messages. 11 from Richard, 6 from Haley from different numbers. I ignored them all. At noon, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. I watched him through the kitchen window. My beautiful boy. 23 years old, my greatest achievement, the one purely good thing Richard and I had created together. He was smiling as he walked up the path, so completely, innocently happy. I wanted to build a wall around him, to keep him in that moment forever, before knowledge, before everything changed. Mom, he said, hugging me at the door. He was all warmth and energy. He pulled back and looked at me. You look tired. Are you feeling okay? Just didn't sleep well, I lied. You know how it is. We sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, looking at specs for gaming PCs. He was so excited, chattering about processors and graphics cards, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. I smiled and nodded and offered opinions, and the whole time I was screaming inside. Your father is cheating on me with your girlfriend. Haley wanted me to catch them. Everything you believe is a lie. But I said nothing. I played my part. Where's Dad? He asked casually, scrolling through reviews. The question landed like a punch to the stomach. Working, I said, my voice steady. Big real estate deal closing. He's always working lately. He glanced up from the screen, his gaze too perceptive. He'd always been too perceptive. Is everything okay with you guys? Of course, honey. Why? I don't know. You both just seem stressed lately. Distracted. It's just life, I said, forcing a smile that felt like my face was cracking. Nothing to worry about. He studied me for a moment, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but then he nodded. Okay. But you'd tell me if something was wrong, right? Of course I would, another lie. They were stacking up now, like bricks in a wall between us. We spent another hour on the computer. I ordered his favorite pizza for lunch. We ate and talked and laughed, and it felt like being an actor in a play where I was the only one who knew the script was fake. As he was leaving, he hugged me again. Love you, Mom. You're the best. Love you too, sweetheart. I watched him drive away. The moment his car was out of sight, I went back inside and finally, let myself cry. The tears came in violent, shaking sobs that bent me double. I cried for the marriage I'd lost, for the trust that was shattered, for my son's innocence that I would have to destroy. I cried for the version of myself who had woken up yesterday morning still believing in her life. I cried until I was empty. Then I stopped. I sat up, wiped my face on my sleeve, and looked around the kitchen. Something was shifting inside me. Something cold and sharp was emerging from the wreckage. It felt like clarity. It felt like rage being distilled into something pure and focused. I'd spent enough time being devastated. Now it was time to think. Haley had wanted me to see. She'd orchestrated my discovery. Which meant this wasn't just about an affair. This was about power. This was about taking something from me and making sure I knew it. I pulled up my laptop, the one I used for my part-time bookkeeping work, and I started searching. Haley Carter. Her social media profiles loaded on the screen: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'd seen them all before, of course. I'd liked her photos of her and Daniel, commented supportive things on her posts about her college achievements. But I'd never really looked at them. Not with this new lens. Not trying to see what was underneath. I scrolled back through her Instagram. 6 months, a year, 2 years. The photos told a story I had been too trusting to read. Dozens of photos taken at our house. The Thanksgiving picture from last year, Christmas morning, 4th of July barbecues, random Sunday dinners. She was always positioned close to Richard. In group shots, she'd somehow always ended up next to him. A hand on his arm here, leaning in to laugh at a joke there. Innocent gestures, easily explained away. Until they weren't. I kept scrolling. I found photos from restaurants I recognized, places Richard had told me were business dinners. In the background of Haley's carefully cropped selfies, I could sometimes see another table, another person. I enlarged one from 4 months ago. And there, in the blurred background, was Richard's profile. His distinctive salt and pepper hair. 4 months ago. He'd said 3 months. Another lie. I went further back, to when Daniel and Haley had first started dating. A photo from a party. Haley, front and center, gorgeous in a short dress, laughing. The caption read, "Sometimes you just have to find a better family." I saw it differently now. The better family. She'd been looking for a better family, and she'd found ours. And then she'd decided to dismantle it from the inside out. I found her Facebook. I clicked on her friends list and scrolled through. My stomach turned. Richard. They were Facebook friends. Had been for 2 years, since just after she started dating Daniel. Why had he accepted her request? Why hadn't he mentioned it? Of course, why would I have questioned it? She was my son's girlfriend. It meant nothing. Except it meant everything. I checked their interaction. He'd liked dozens of her photos. Consistent, quiet attention. My phone rang. Richard. I declined the call. He immediately called again. Declined. A text appeared. We need to talk about what happens next. Please, Brenda. I know you're angry, but we have to figure this out. What happens next? As if there was a roadmap for this. I didn't respond. I kept digging. LinkedIn. Haley's professional profile. Intern at a marketing firm. Before that, her communications degree from the state university where she'd met Daniel. I clicked on her connections. Scrolled through. And I stopped. Several people from Richard's real estate company. Not just Richard. His business partners. His associates. His secretary. When had she connected with them? I opened a new tab. I searched Haley Carter and the name of Richard's company together. Nothing came up. But I kept digging. I checked the company's own social media accounts. And there it was. 6 months ago. A photo from a company charity gala. And in the background, talking to one of Richard's partners, was Haley. The caption mentioned friends and family in attendance. Had Richard invited her? As whose guest? As Daniel's girlfriend, or as something else? The pieces were arranging themselves into a picture I didn't want to see. This wasn't just a sordid affair. This was calculated. Methodical. She had been working her way into his life, into our life, for years. Building connections, creating opportunities, positioning herself. But why? I thought about what I knew of her background. The absent father, the mother who was always working. The feeling of being unwanted. Then she'd met Daniel, who had everything she didn't. A stable family, 2 parents who loved each other, financial security. Everything Haley wanted. So she decided to take it. Not through friendship. Through substitution. She didn't want to be part of our family. She wanted to be me. That smile. That victorious smile finally made perfect, horrifying sense. She had won. She had seduced my husband, infiltrated every corner of my life, and she had made sure I knew it. My knowledge was the final part of her victory. She needed me to see her winning. Except she'd miscalculated one thing. I wasn't gone yet. I sat back and closed the laptop. My tears had dried. My hands were steady. Something crystalline and cold had formed in my chest where my heart used to be. I couldn't tell Daniel. Not yet. That would cause exactly the chaos Haley wanted. Daniel would be devastated, torn between his loyalty to me and his love for Haley, who he still thought was the perfect girl. The family would fracture publicly, painfully, exactly as she had designed. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. I had to let Haley think she'd won. I had to let Richard think there was a chance for reconciliation. I had to keep playing my part while I figured out how to flip the script. I picked up my phone and called Richard. He answered on the first ring, his voice desperate. Brenda? Thank God. I've been so worried. We should talk, I said, my voice calm, measured. But not yet. I need some time to process. A few days. Of course, he said, relief flooding his voice. Whatever you need. Take all the time you need. Thank you, I said. I'm not promising anything, Richard. I just need to think. I understand. But Brenda. I meant what I said. I love you. I want to fix this. I know, I said, letting him hear what he wanted to hear. Letting him think there was hope. I hung up. Next, I did something that made my skin crawl. I texted Haley. We should talk. Coffee tomorrow. Just us. The reply came in seconds. Yes, of course. Thank you for being willing. What time? 10 a.m. The Greenhouse Cafe. I'll be there. I chose the Greenhouse Cafe for a reason. She'd told me once, months ago, that it was her favorite spot. I always feel better here, she'd said. It's like my safe space. I was going to meet her in her safe space. And I was going to take it away from her. I was going to use their own weapons against them. Deception. Manipulation. If Haley wanted to play games, I would show her what happens when you play against someone who has nothing left to lose. I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. I ordered an herbal tea I knew I wouldn't drink and chose a table by the window, where the morning light would catch my face just right. I had dressed carefully, a simple gray sweater, minimal makeup, my hair pulled back. I was aiming for the perfect picture of a wounded woman trying to hold herself together. Every choice was strategic now. Every gesture was a weapon. Haley arrived exactly on time. She had dressed carefully, too. Jeans and a simple white blouse, natural makeup, her hair down and soft. The costume of contrition. We were both performing. She saw me and hesitated by the door. I watched her take a deep breath, steel herself, and then walk over. "Brenda," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you for meeting me." She sat down, her hands folded neatly on the table. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I said, keeping my voice quiet. Wounded, but searching. "I am so sorry," she began, the words sounding rehearsed. "I know I keep saying that, and I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know." "Why?" I interrupted, cutting through the performance. "Why did you do it, Haley?" She looked down at her hands. She was choosing her words carefully, deciding which version of the truth to tell me. "I don't have a good answer," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I was lonely." He paid attention to me. It started innocently, just talking. About life and work. Then, it became more. By the time I realized what was happening, I was in too deep. It was a good story. Believable. The kind of explanation that painted her as a victim of circumstance rather than an architect of destruction. "When did it start?" I asked, pushing for a detail I already knew. "About 3 months ago. After the charity gala for his company." "How did you end up at that event?" I asked, feigning simple curiosity. "Richard invited me," she said smoothly. "He said partners were bringing friends and family, and since Daniel couldn't make it, he thought it would be nice to have someone there." Plausible. And maybe even true, depending on how she'd maneuvered that invitation. "That was kind of him," I said, my voice flat. She nodded, taking a sip of the coffee she'd ordered. Her hands were perfectly steady. "What happens now?" she asked, her blue eyes wide with fake concern. "With you and Richard?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "He wants to work on things." "Do you?" She leaned forward slightly. "I know I have no right to ask, but do you think you can forgive him?" There it was. The real question. The one that mattered to her. Because if I forgave Richard, if our marriage survived, then her victory was incomplete. She'd be just a sordid little footnote. But if I left him? "I don't know," I said again, letting a tear well up in my eye. "We've built a life together. 20 years. But I don't know if I can ever trust him again." "Trust is everything," Haley said softly, her voice full of phony wisdom. "Without that, what's the point?" She was encouraging divorce. Subtle, but definite. Planting seeds of doubt, making sure the wound wouldn't heal. "What about you?" I asked, looking her directly in the eye. "Do you have feelings for him?" She looked startled. It's complicated." I just waited. She was deciding again. How much truth to tell? How much to hide? "I care about him," she said finally. "But I know it can't go anywhere." "He loves you." He made that very clear. "I was a mistake, and now it's over." "Is it over?" "Yes," she said, without a flicker of hesitation. "Completely. I ended it yesterday. After you found out. I told him we couldn't do this anymore." So noble of her. Taking the high ground. Never mind that she'd orchestrated my discovery. Never mind the smile. That smile, I said, watching her face closely. What? When I walked in. You smiled at me. Her expression didn't change. No panic. No defensiveness. Just a steady gaze. I was in shock, she said, her voice smooth as silk. I don't even remember doing that. I wasn't smiling, Brenda. I was horrified. A perfect, calculated lie. Delivered so flawlessly that if I hadn't seen it myself, I might have almost believed her. Maybe I misinterpreted, I said, backing down, letting her think she'd won that point. Everything happened so fast. She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. The touch made my skin crawl, but I didn't pull away. I promise you, Brenda, she said, her eyes shining with manufactured tears. I felt nothing but horrible in that moment. Losing you, losing your friendship, your trust, that's the worst part of all of this. You've been like a mother to me. And I destroyed that. I hate myself for it. The performance was flawless. But I knew better. What about Daniel? I asked, my voice breaking for real this time. She pulled her hand back. That's what kills me the most, she whispered. He can never know. It would destroy him. It would destroy how he sees his father, and me. So you want me to lie to my son? I want you to protect him, she corrected me. There's a difference. Please, Brenda. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But Daniel doesn't deserve this. If this comes out, he loses everything. Is that really what you want? It was manipulation dressed as concern. Making me responsible for my son's pain. Framing the truth as cruelty and the lie as love. I haven't decided what to tell him yet, I said. Relief flickered across her face, just for a second. Just think about what's best for him, she said. I wanted to throw my tea in her face. But I stayed in character. You're right, I said. I need to think about Daniel. She left a few minutes later, after another round of tearful apologies. I watched her drive away, and then I sat there, sipping my now cold tea. She was good. Better than good. She wasn't sorry. She was managing the situation. Making sure I stayed quiet, making sure Daniel never found out, making sure that when I inevitably left Richard, which is what she expected, she would be positioned perfectly to step in. The concerned friend who understood him. She'd wait a respectable amount of time, 6 months, maybe a year. Then she'd start seeing him openly. Daniel would be shocked at first, but she'd frame it as something that developed after the divorce. He'd eventually accept it. She would move into my house, sleep in my bed, and become Daniel's stepmother. That was the plan. I could see it all so clearly. And I was going to burn it to the ground. I picked up my phone and made a call. Jenkins Private Investigations. How can we help you? I need to hire someone, I said, my voice steady. For surveillance and background research. My husband is having an affair. The investigator's name was Tara Bennett. Mid-40s, ex-NYPD, with sharp, intelligent eyes that miss nothing. We met in a sterile coffee shop across town, a place I'd never been before. I read your initial forms, she said, sliding into the booth. Your husband and your son's girlfriend. That's complicated. That's one word for it, I replied. What's your goal here, Brenda? She asked, direct and professional. Are you looking for evidence for a divorce? Just peace of mind? I don't know yet, I admitted. All of the above, maybe. Right now, I just need the full picture. I need to understand everything that's been happening behind my back. She nodded. I can do that. Surveillance on both parties. Documentation of all meetings. A full background check on Haley Carter, financials, digital footprint, the works. And I'll look into your husband's history, see if this is a pattern. Do it, I said. It's not cheap. She quoted me a number that made my stomach drop, but I didn't flinch. I had my own money. I'd worked part-time throughout our marriage, maintained my own savings account. I had never needed Richard financially, and at that moment, I was more grateful for my independence than ever before. The next 2 weeks were an exercise in acting. I played the part of the wounded wife, slowly, cautiously considering reconciliation. I met with Richard twice for tense, sad dinners where I let him apologize, let him cry, let him make empty promises about marriage counseling and changing his ways. I'm trying, Richard, I'd tell him, my voice soft and broken. I just need more time. Take all the time you need, he'd say, believing he was winning me back. All the while, Tara and her team were documenting everything. And they were still seeing each other. Despite Haley's tearful claims that it was over, despite Richard's promises, they were still meeting. More carefully now. Different hotels, always paid in cash. They were being cautious, but not cautious enough. Tara got the photos. Time-stamped, location tagged. Undeniable. Richard entering a cheap motel on the edge of town. Haley arriving 15 minutes later in her own car. Both leaving separately 2 hours after that. It happened 3 times in 2 weeks. Each time Tara sent me the files, a small, stupid part of me that had hoped he was telling the truth died. He was still lying. Still choosing her. Then the background check on Haley came back. It was thicker than I expected. Your instincts were good, Tara said when she handed me the folder. This girl has a pattern. I opened it and started reading. Haley's college years were more complicated than I knew. She'd been involved in a scandal her junior year, an affair with a married professor. The professor's wife had filed a formal complaint. Nothing came of it officially, but the professor had quietly resigned at the end of the semester. She was 20, Tara said. Already targeting older, established men with something to lose. There was more. After college, she'd worked at a law firm. She was fired after 6 months for poor performance. But Tara had talked to a former colleague. The real reason was that she'd been involved with one of the senior partners, another married man. That time, the wife had found out and issued an ultimatum, fire the girl, or she was filing for divorce. The firm fired Haley to save the marriage. She's done this before, I said, feeling sick. Multiple times, Tara confirmed. She targets stable, successful men in established relationships. Works her way in through a legitimate connection, school, work, in your case, your son, makes herself seem indispensable, and then strikes. But why? Without a psychological evaluation, I can only guess, Tara said. But the pattern suggests she's attracted to what they represent. Stability, success, the family she never had. She wants to take what these other women have. The report also confirmed what I'd suspected about Richard's finances. Over the past 6 months, he'd been moving money, small amounts at a time, into a separate bank account I didn't know about. About $40,000 so far. It looks like he's preparing for something, Tara said. Maybe planning to leave you. Setting up a nest egg for his new life with her. He was planning a future with her while crying at dinner, telling me he wanted to fix our marriage. The betrayal was so layered, so complete, I almost laughed. I want everything, I told Tara, my voice cold as ice. Every photo, every receipt, every record. I want a full dossier on both of them. And I want it all documented and court-ready. You're filing for divorce? I'm going to do more than that, I said. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they are. I spent the next week planning like I was orchestrating a military campaign. I met with a divorce lawyer, the best in the city. A woman named Catherine Morrison, who was known for decimating unfaithful spouses in court. This is airtight, Catherine said, reviewing Tara's evidence. Multiple instances of adultery, ongoing deception, financial irregularities. We'll argue he was hiding assets in preparation for the divorce. The court doesn't look kindly on that. That felt like justice. But the divorce was just the legal framework. It wasn't the real plan. The real plan was about exposure. Daniel's birthday was in 3 weeks. He'd been planning a small dinner party with a few close friends. Haley was, of course, on the guest list. I called him. "Honey," I said, my voice warm and cheerful. "I was thinking, why don't we do your birthday party here? At the house? More space, and I can help you cook. Make it really special." He was hesitant at first. "Are you sure, Mom? With everything going on with you and Dad?" "It's your birthday," I said firmly. "I can handle one evening. Let me do this for you." He finally agreed. He had always loved parties at our house. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing. I had a tech-savvy friend help me put all the evidence, the photos, the texts, Haley's history, the financial records, into a clear, compelling presentation. I would play it on the big screen TV in the living room. After dinner, before cake. I made sure certain people were on the guest list. Daniel's friends, obviously. Richard's 2 main business partners, who I knew he was trying to impress for a promotion. And I made one special addition. I had found Patricia, the wife of the lawyer Haley had been involved with. I reached out to her through a carefully worded message. We met for coffee. I told her my story. She told me hers. The pain in her eyes matched my own. "She's doing it again," Patricia whispered, her voice shaking. "God, she's doing exactly what she did to us." "Help me stop her," I said. And Patricia agreed. She would come to the party as my new friend. The night of the party arrived. I felt eerily calm, the kind of calm that comes when you've made peace with burning everything down. Daniel was radiant, 24 years old and so handsome, so unsuspecting. Richard arrived, awkward but trying, bringing an expensive gift. Haley arrived last, fashionably late, stunning in a blue dress that I now realized was meant for Richard's eyes, not my son's. She hugged Daniel, then turned to me. "Brenda," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "Thank you for having me." "Of course," I said, and I smiled. I let her think she was safe. We ate dinner. We laughed. We toasted Daniel. Everything was perfect and normal and a complete lie. Then, I stood up. "Before we have cake," I said, my voice ringing out clearly in the sudden quiet. "I'd like to share something. A little presentation. Daniel, honey, this is part of your gift." He looked confused but pleased. "Mom, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said. I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. "Everyone, if you could gather in the living room for just a moment." They filed in, curious. Richard and Haley stood near the back. I saw them exchange a brief, questioning glance. The first flicker of concern. Daniel stood right in front, excited to see what I had prepared. I pressed play. The screen filled with text, stark white against a black background, the truth about Haley Carter. Daniel's smile faltered. "Mom, what is this?" "Just watch, sweetheart." The presentation began. It started with the affair. Photos of Richard and Haley entering and leaving the motel. Timestamps. Locations. Gasps rippled through the room. I watched Daniel's face drain of color. He turned to look at Haley, then at Richard, his expression a mixture of disbelief and horror. "No," he whispered. "No, this isn't real." But it was. The presentation continued. Text messages between them, projected large enough for everyone to read. The explicit ones. The planning ones. The ones about me. She suspects nothing. This is easier than I thought. And the ones about their future. Once the divorce is final, we can be together openly. Then came Haley's history. The professor. The lawyer. The pattern laid out in cold, chronological detail. Patricia stepped forward. "That's me," she said, her voice shaking but strong, pointing to a photo of her and her husband on the screen. "That's my family. What she did to my family." Haley had gone white as a sheet. You can't do this." "I can," I said calmly. "It's all true. All documented." Richard was trying to reach for Daniel, who jerked away from his father's touch as if he'd been burned. "Daniel, please, let me explain." "Explain?" Daniel's voice cracked. "Explain what, Dad? That you've been sleeping with my girlfriend? That you both lied to my face every single day?" "Daniel, I'm so sorry, I never meant," Haley started. "Don't," Daniel's voice was sharp as glass. "Don't you dare talk to me." The presentation ended, and the screen went black. I turned on the lights. "You have no right." Haley was crying now, but they were tears of rage, not remorse. "This is defamation. I'll sue you." "For what?" A calm voice cut through the tension. Catherine Morrison, my lawyer, stepped up from where she'd been standing quietly near the back. I hadn't mentioned I'd invited her. "For telling the truth?" "Everything in that presentation is documented fact. You're welcome to try suing, but discovery would be fascinating." Haley's mouth snapped shut. Richard was just staring at me, as if he'd never seen me before. "Brenda, why?" he choked out. "Why would you do this? Here? In front of Daniel?" "Because Daniel deserved to know the truth," I said, my voice rising for the first time. "Because he was going to find out eventually, and I wanted him to hear it from me, with evidence, so he couldn't be manipulated by your lies anymore. You ambushed me in my own home, Richard. This is what it feels like." She smiled, Daniel whispered, looking from me to Haley. "Mom said she smiled." "Yes," I confirmed, my gaze locking with his. She smiled. "Because this was never just an affair, Daniel. This was a calculated plan to take over my life. To push me out and step into my place. Look at the evidence. Look at her history. This is what she does." Daniel turned to Haley, his face a mask of pain. "Is that true? Were you trying to replace my mother?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. Then he turned to his father. "And you? How could you? How could you do this to Mom? To me?" "Daniel, I made a terrible mistake." "Mistake?" Daniel laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Dad. This is something else." He couldn't finish. He turned to me. "Mom. I'm so sorry. I brought her into our lives. I trusted her." "This is not your fault," I said firmly, going to him, wrapping my arms around him. "None of this is your fault. You trusted people you loved. That's not wrong. They are the ones who betrayed that trust." And just like that, they were gone. Haley grabbed her purse and fled, slamming the door behind her. A few moments later, Catherine handed a stunned Richard an envelope. "You've been served," she said. "Divorce proceedings begin Monday. You have 24 hours to collect your essential belongings from the house." He left without another word, his shoulders slumped, looking 20 years older than when he'd arrived. The party was over. The storm had passed, leaving a devastating silence in its wake. All the guests had trickled out, leaving me and Daniel standing alone in the wreckage of his birthday. If you're still listening, could you do me a huge favor and like this video and comment the number 1 down below? It lets me know that you amazing people are still here, and it makes me feel like you're right here with me on this journey. Your support is an incredible encouragement for me, it truly lifts me up. Please, comment the number 1 so I can see you, and now, let me tell you the rest of my story. After the last guest had given me a sympathetic hug and whispered words of support, the front door clicked shut, and the silence in the house was absolute. It was just me and Daniel, standing amidst the ruins. Half-eaten plates of cake, festive napkins crumpled on the floor, birthday banners hanging crookedly on the walls. It looked like the aftermath of a celebration, but it felt like the site of a demolition. Mom, Daniel's voice was hoarse from crying. I'm so sorry. Oh, honey, no, I said, pulling him into another hug. I told you, this is not on you. But it is, he insisted, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I brought her here. I loved her. I told her everything, about us, about you and Dad, and the whole time she was. His voice broke. How do I ever trust anyone again? The same way I will, I said, stroking his hair. Carefully. But not everyone is like them, Daniel. Most people are good. Honest. We just have to be more careful about who we let get close. He nodded, but he looked so lost, so broken. We cleaned up the party debris together, moving in a silent, shared grief. We threw away plates of uneaten cake, took down the decorations, erasing the physical evidence of the worst birthday party in history. I need to go on therapy, he said, as he stuffed paper plates into a trash bag. Me too, I said immediately. We'll find someone good. We'll work through this. Together. Together. That word was my lifeline. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I deleted it without responding. A minute later, another text from a number I didn't recognize. You're going to regret this. Making me look bad won't change what happened. Haley. Still unable to accept responsibility. I forwarded the text to Catherine with a note, add to harassment file. Then I blocked the number. Daniel stayed with me that night. He couldn't face going back to his apartment, the one filled with pictures and memories of Haley. He fell asleep on the couch around 2 a.m, exhausted from the emotional turmoil. I covered him with a blanket, watching him sleep, my heart aching for the boy whose world had been so cruelly shattered. Then, I went upstairs. It was time. I opened the door to my bedroom, the room I had avoided for weeks. I stripped the bed, gathering every sheet, every pillowcase, every blanket. I didn't put them in the laundry. I carried the bundle downstairs and shoved it all into a black trash bag. Some things can't be cleaned. Then I went back upstairs and started on Richard's closet. He had 24 hours. I was going to make it easy for him. I pulled out his suits, his shirts, his shoes, piling everything on the floor. In the back of his closet, tucked away on a high shelf, I found a small velvet box. My heart seized. A ring box. I opened it. Inside wasn't a ring, but a delicate white gold necklace with a small diamond pendant. Expensive. Tasteful. There was a receipt in the box. Purchased 3 weeks ago. The same day he'd brought me those stupid lilies. The necklace wasn't for me. It was for her. I put it back in the box and placed it right on top of the pile of his clothes. He could have it. It meant nothing to me. I worked all night, erasing him from my space. Bathroom products, books from his nightstand, photos from my dresser. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. The bedroom looked different. Emptier, but cleaner. I made the bed with fresh sheets, lay down, and waited to feel the grief, the sadness for my lost marriage. But all I felt was relief. And somewhere underneath the exhaustion, something else. Freedom. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings and therapy sessions. Richard came to collect his things while I was out. He left a note on the kitchen counter. "I'll regret this for the rest of my life. I threw away everything for something that meant nothing. I hope someday you can both forgive me." I read it once and put it in a folder labeled Divorce Miscellaneous. I felt nothing. The video from Daniel's party had spread. Not virally, but within our circles. Richard's business partners distanced themselves from him. He didn't get the promotion. His reputation was in tatters. Haley was fired from her job. Daniel told me about it quietly, without any satisfaction. Hostile work environment, he explained. A few people who were at the party complained. The company decided it was easier to just let her go. The divorce moved forward. Catherine was a shark. She used the evidence of his financial infidelity, the hidden bank account, the gifts he'd bought Haley on joint credit cards, the motel rooms, to secure a settlement that was more than fair. I got the house, the majority of our savings, and a spousal support arrangement that ensured I would be financially secure. Richard got what was left of his reputation and a small rental apartment across town. 6 months after that terrible night, the divorce was finalized. "It's done," Catherine told me over the phone. "You're officially single." Single. The word felt strange after 20 years. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I said, and I meant it. I redecorated the bedroom. New paint, new furniture, a new bed. I started dating, casually. Nothing serious. Just remembering what it felt like to be seen as a woman, not just a wife or a mother. Daniel thrived. He got a promotion at work, made new friends, and eventually started seeing a wonderful girl from his new department, kind, stable, and completely unconnected to the wreckage of our past. We both healed, slowly, painfully, but we healed. 1 year after I opened that bedroom door, I was in a coffee shop downtown when I saw her. Haley. She looked different, thinner, harder. Her hair was shorter, dyed a darker brown. But I'd know that face anywhere. She was with a man, older, a wedding ring clearly visible on his finger. They were sitting close, talking intently. I watched her lean in and touch his arm with that same practiced ease she'd used on Richard. The pattern was repeating. Our eyes met across the cafe. Recognition flickered in hers. Then something else, that same cold calculation I'd seen in my bedroom. And then, she did it again. She smiled. It wasn't a smile of victory this time. It was a smile of defiance. A smile that said, "You didn't break me. You didn't stop me. I'm still here." My first instinct was rage. The urge to walk over there, to warn that man, to expose her all over again. But I didn't. Because in that moment, I understood something. Haley would always be Haley. She would keep doing this, keep targeting families, keep trying to take what others had built. And I couldn't spend the rest of my life following her around, trying to save the world from her. She had already taken enough of my time, my energy, my life. So, I smiled back. Not the wounded smile of a victim. Not the bitter smile of someone trapped in the past. It was the smile of someone who had survived, who had fought back, and who had rebuilt. A smile that said, "You wanted my life, but I'm still here, stronger and free. And you're still doing the same desperate, hollow thing." A smile that said, "I won." I stood up, gathered my things, and walked right past her table without a single word. I left the coffee shop, left her to her next victim, and walked out into the bright afternoon sun. She wasn't my problem anymore. I drove home, to the house I had reclaimed, to the life I had rebuilt. Daniel was coming for dinner. I was making his favorite pasta. We were going to watch a movie and laugh. We were going to exist in the peace we had fought so hard to create. As I started cooking in my quiet, peaceful kitchen, I caught my reflection in the window over the sink. I was smiling. Not with pain, not with bitterness. But with peace. With power. With the quiet knowledge that I had survived the unsurvivable and had come out stronger on the other side. Haley had smiled at me in that bedroom, thinking she had one. But this time, I was the one smiling. And this time, it was real. Thank you all for listening.